Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Facepalm Studio. And on today's IT Tuesday, we are going to be talking about monitors. Now, I have a little bit of a different preference for my monitors than most people, especially in this day and age where it comes to everybody wanting the fastest refresh rate, highest resolution possible, best fidelity. There are some features for monitors that are really important, and this time of the year is a good way when this time of the year is a good time to be able to buy monitors. However, people don't know quite what they're getting sometimes. So I'm going to go over today some of the more important specs for monitors that I think will help make a better decision for picking a monitor. And hopefully it helps you guys from buying a cheap monitor that doesn't have great specs if you're trying to do creative work, high-end gaming, that kind of stuff. So come with me today and we should be able to hopefully narrow some things in for you. Okay, so some of the main features of monitors that people look for the most are the resolution, the refresh rate, the kind of inputs that are available, how bright the monitor gets, something called HDR, which we will get into, and the color space for the monitor. Those are going to be the few that I'm going to go over today. The list that I'm kind of working off of for reference and kind of the explanation for today's video. I'm going to put the link in the description for that. But this has a longer list. It's about 15 options of things that people look for. But I think these are the more important ones, the things that people are looking for the most. So let's get right into it. Okay, so number one is the resolution. Every modern display is made up of millions of pixels, and that creates the image that you're going to see on your screen. The resolution of your monitor determines what that value is. So it's things that you can normally would be seeing would be like 1920 by 1080, 1920 by 720, 2560 by 1440, and then 4K resolution, which is 3840 by 2160 or 4096 by 2160. And those are standard resolution types for most monitors. And you can even get monitors up to 5K and 8K for like very high end products. But when you're trying to pick a monitor resolution, there's a few factors you have to think about too. So if you're going for 4K, you have to think about if your computer's graphics card will be able to handle it. If you have room for a 4K monitor, because usually when you're getting a larger size monitor, those are going to have the higher resolution types. If you're getting a smaller form factor resolution or a smaller size monitor at a higher resolution, you might be losing out on some of that detail. But some of the main quality aspects that you get here will come from that resolution. So like your screen size. So you guys can see here that on my monitor, a lot of my icons tend to be a lot smaller. It's because I have them at that 2K resolution. So I'm just going to minimize a few things here. If I go to my display settings really quick, you'll see here that my main monitor one is way bigger than the resolution for my second monitor. And that's also something to think about is the change between your two screens, how that's going to affect what you're looking at. So the resolution for this monitor that I'm working on is my Samsung monitor. It's 3840 by 2160, and I have it set at the base scaling for 150. Now, if you have to scale it up higher, you also have to account that your other apps and text will also be scaled at that resolution as well when you scale things up that way. So something to think about for the resolution. Typically, you'd want to be going for 1920 by 1080 at the minimum if you're going to be doing gaming and creative professional type work. All the way up to, I would say, probably 4K UHD, which is this 3840 by 21. All right, and so I briefly talked about in the last section there about the screen size for your monitor, and that's the second thing that we're going to be looking at. So typically, the lower size monitors you typically see are going to be like 21.5 inches all the way up to 27 inches. I actually am using a 32-inch monitor. And the thing with the larger screens, like 32 and higher, if you get Ultra HD or anything like that, or ultra wide, displays that are larger than 27 inches are used by professionals for specific tasks and need larger spaces and more complex setups to handle. So my graphics card handles a 4K monitor, but my desk space is really limited on what I have to work with this monitor. So that's something I have to kind of fight for, but it does work in the long run. Another thing to consider is the resolution and the pixel density, the PPI for the monitor. If you have a lower pixel density, a smaller size, but a high resolution, you're going to be losing out on a lot of the different views and the different looks that you'll be getting. Whereas if you have a higher resolution monitor at a larger size, you'll be able to get a full range of that pixel density. As well as if you have a large monitor at a low resolution, you're going to lose out on a ton of quality. It's going to be very hard to see. So you kind of have to budget for that in the middle while you're looking at that stuff. The next part that I'm going to be talking about here is going to be the refresh rate. And this is something that people are more common to be looking at nowadays, especially with gaming. I prefer 60 to 90 hertz, where some people have to have a 144 hertz monitor. And what that kind of means is, and I'm going to put an image up on the screen here so that way you guys can see this as well. 60 hertz, the screen has a little bit more blur to it, and it isn't refreshing as quick. So think about it like your monitor is refreshing every millisecond, or at whatever, how refresh rate refers to how many times the display can update in 1 second and is measured in hertz. And so every second in 60 hertz, this image refreshes on the screen. Now you get a clearer picture at 240 hertz. But I prefer, when I'm working on something like this, to be able to have a little bit more of that blur, something a little bit, especially if I'm playing a game, feels like it gives me a little bit more realism, some of that motion blur. But you also can enable motion blur at those higher resolutions, but that also will take a toll on your graphics as well. So there's give and take with that as well. If I had to pick and go higher, I probably would do 120. Between 60 hertz and 120 hertz, I really can't tell much of a difference. 144 hertz actually kind of gives me a headache sometimes. And then going all the way up to 240 hertz, I can't notice a difference. So it's really a kind of a preference thing of what you're seeing when you go up to those higher resolutions as well. The next part that we're going to be talking about, actually really quick, I'm going to touch briefly on this here. Monitors also have features that work well with different graphics cards. So for example, G-Sync is NVIDIA's encoder for their adaptive syncing technology. So I'm just going to read this here for you. A G-Sync compatible display needs to have an NVIDIA proprietary module in it to be certified. Because of this, G-Sync displays may come at a slight premium. This module handles the scaling of frames from the graphics card. So it handles more of the encoding tasks that would be handled only by your graphics card. It takes the load off of your card by doing that. And then FreeSync is the AMD equivalent. That one uses adaptive sync technology within the DisplayPort 1.2a standard. This FreeSync indicates that this technology can be used by other companies without paying royalties. This also makes FreeSync monitors more affordable as the standard of the two. I tend to gravitate more toward NVIDIA, but I do like the FreeSync monitors. They do have a very clear picture when you're working with them. Next, kind of on that note there, using the correct video input for your monitor is going to make a drastic difference depending on what you're looking for. Typically, the main ones you're going to be seeing nowadays are Mini DisplayPort, DisplayPort HDMI. If you want to know a little bit more detail about this, make sure you go check out the video about ports and cable types that I posted a few weeks ago. It's a very popular video, and I went into a little bit more detail into what those cables mean. But I'm going to read through a little bit of this here for you guys, so you guys can get an idea again about those three particular ones. Those are the ones you're going to be see for most monitors. If you're going to be looking at VGA, DVI, those ones are going to be for more older screens, or if the cable comes in a basic HP monitor or something like that, something at a lower resolution, those handle audio and video, and they work pretty well. I know at my job, everybody uses a VGA to DisplayPort adapter, but we have to use adapters for that kind of stuff, so something to look out for. So HDMI stands for High Definition Multimedia Interface, and it is the most universal connection type in most monitors and TVs. The latest version of HDMI 2.1 supports up to 10K at 120 hertz video, as well as many products don't really support that quite yet. Now, DisplayPort does output up to 8K at 60 hertz, but there is features included with that, with the new DisplayPort 2.0 standard that will have support for 16K at 60 hertz. So there's a lot of different features there that are able to be pushed depending on the cable you're using, and people will be looking at that when you're looking to get a good monitor. If it has HDMI 2.0, if it has DisplayPort 2.0, you'll be getting a better quality picture from that. And then these are two kind of important ones for me, at least with a creative professional: brightness and HDR. So I'm going to talk about HDR first. The high dynamic range for your monitor is another technical specification that is used for displaying highlights and darker lowlights, providing a more dynamic image. And you see this most commonly on like a lot of the Mac computers, Apple devices. They use a lot of HDR. And when you're looking for a monitor with it, it gives you a much more depth in the imagery that you're working with. But you have to kind of pair that with the brightness of the monitor as well. If most standard monitors have a brightness rating of 200 to 300 nits, which is adequate for regular use. But if you get a higher distance nit brightness, you're able to have a little bit more of that depth to your image. So like, for example, my Samsung monitor is pretty bright, but it does not have HDR. So I kind of sacrifice a little bit of that with this monitor that I'm using, but I definitely will be getting that sooner than later. The part of that as well also goes into the color space for the monitor. The color space allows it for a wider range of imagery and colors depth with your image. So it helps spread things out that way as well. Trying to see if there's anything else that I need to talk about here. Okay, I think that's about does it for what I want to cover in this video. I'm going to leave a few recommendations for some monitors in the comments below, just for you guys who may want an idea of the low, middle, and high range for these kinds of computers. If you liked what you saw today and you want me to kind of review or look at any particular models, make sure you leave them in the comments below when you go to subscribe to Facepalm Studio. And if you liked what you saw and you want to see more of this, make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter so you can ask us some more questions and be able to get a little bit more of this content going. I really am enjoying making these kinds of videos. It's a little bit more out of my comfort zone because it's more opinionated, but I hope it's informational and that you guys are enjoying it. So until next time, guys, keep creating, save the pain for those facepalm moments, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.